This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
John Stamos here in partnership with Cologuard, and I've got to say, so you're 45 or older and at average risk. So what? That doesn't mean your life comes to a halt. No way. You can still do all the fun things you've been doing, but it's time to take your health a little more seriously. Colon cancer screening needs to be on your docket, and it's as simple as the Cologuard test. Don't worry. You got this.
We are back with another episode of Hard Foul. I am Jim Quigley, as always, with my brother Michael. We are the day after what was probably the most impressive, most exciting, most entertaining Celtics basketball game of the season. Mike, we are brought to you by the what?
The Fan First Sports Network, bitch. And
how are you doing,
work
Mike?
out of stay out of my yard studios.
That's right. As you hear at the end of the pod now. So what are your thoughts? How are you feeling after last night? That was as impressive as it gets.
That was the best game I've seen the Celtics play since the NBA Finals. I mean, that was probably the most important win that they've had now in 2 seasons. OKC's really had their number. OKC's obviously the reigning champions. Lost a really tough one down there, only by 2 points with Tatum not playing. And the Celtics just really showed a lot of toughness and a lot of grit after a first quarter where I wouldn't say they played poorly. OKC was just playing very good. To be down, were they down by 13 going into the second quarter? 13, right?
They were around 13 at some point in the first quarter. And that was a combination of OKC, playing really well, making shots, and the Celtics missing a ton of open looks.
Yeah, which has kind of been a trend in the first quarter for the Celtics for maybe close to a month now. But anyways, their offense in the second half was just so efficient, and their rebounding throughout the game was just really, really, really good. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think they out-rebound by at least 12. And they held OKC to just 17 assists, and 8 of those were by Shea. So it really, they tightened up their defense too, and they switched their looks, and they left some guys open to shoot, and they had good help, and they were able to get to the free throw line. And of course, Jaylen Brown just with an MVP performance. And want to give credit to Baylor Shireman, who played another great game last night too.
Yeah, this game had everything. It really did. It had everything. You had 2 great coaches, 2 great teams. I think 2 teams who've been hoping to see in the finals play each other for the last 2 seasons. It just doesn't happen for different reasons. And for 2 games, they've gone at each other back and forth. But in this game in particular, you mentioned it, both coaches changing up strategy multiple times on the defensive and offensive end. You saw so many different lineups. I think OKC went like 11 deep in this game. I'm not sure what Boston, but it was either 9 or 10. And different contributors doing different things at different levels. You saw a lot of high level superstar basketball at different portions of that game, and then you saw role players really step up, particularly for the Celtics, maybe not as much for OKC. Um, and I just I think, you know, these two teams, if they were to ever meet in the NBA Finals, take away just being a Celtics fan, just as a basketball fan, it would be a treat. They're two teams that grind out every possession. They fight for extra possessions and extra opportunities. The margins matter to them, and they're highly skilled. They're superstars. There's great coaching. I mean, it would be a fantastic 7 game series, as we've just seen from the 2 games that they've played. And I think I texted you with about 6 minutes to go or so, and the Celtics might have gone up 12 at that point.
Yeah.
And I said, this game has had everything you've wanted as a Celtics fan so far. You've had the Jaylen Brown MVP performance. I thought this was Tatum's best night as a Celtic this season. Um, and then you had guys like Neemias Queta and Bill Scheiman, who you mentioned, really stepping up and doing big things. But really, all the role players, contributed in some way, one way or another. Even Hauser, who had a terrible first quarter, made some big threes in the second half. Pritchard, obviously, stretching the defense, when they just helped off him a little bit, and Brown was able to get the ball over to him, and he's taking 30-foot jump shots and making it and really putting pressure on that OKC defense. And even Gaza, who I thought really struggled in his first stint in the game in the first quarter defensively. Um,
A
it
good
seems
fourth
like
quarter.
he figured some things out. Yeah, so I just thought this game had a little bit of everything. It was highly entertaining. We talked about the Phoenix game last week about being one of the better games all year. This topped that by a mile, and it was thoroughly enjoyable game. And the other thing that I don't want to get lost in all this is the Celtics, like in the Cleveland game, this is the only 2 games really where they've been fully healthy against a really good team. Um, they were able to, you know, take take the lead into double digits into the fourth quarter, have a little bit of a run be made at them, but never get it to one possession, never got it to the seat squirming point of the game. They continue to execute their offense and play their game, and Missoula making some really key subs, including Neemias Queta late in that game to kind of just give OKC a different look, have someone in that Duncan spot and that can run the screen and roll with Tatum. So it was
Yeah,
just
and
fantastic. So go ahead, Mike.
they were able to turn they were able to turn OKC over quite a bit in the fourth quarter, which I thought was big too. Brown, he took some risks where he would leave his man and come behind somebody and steal the ball, or just put his hands in there. And they were getting their hands in on a lot of balls. There was a block shot that Derek White had either in the first or second half that they called a foul.
It was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he got
Fourth
called for
quarter,
2.
yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
one where Shea pushed off, and then
right.
yeah.
I don't know how you're supposed to cover that guy, but the way they call for him. But they didn't get into it with the refs. They just kept playing. That's what you have to do, because they're not going to change the way they call the game for this guy. And you got to just play through it. And down the other end, Brown was creating contact. He's been creating contact now for well over 2 weeks and getting to the line at a high level. And even Shea said it in the post game. He said the easiest points are free throws. And
Yeah.
Brown, what he put up 14 last night?
I think so. Yeah.
And hit 13 of them. That's a big factor in the game. You're going to go to the line that much. You make 13 of them, your team's going to win more nights than not. So it was like a little bit of everything that the Celtics did well last night. You mentioned Garza. I mean, Garza's solid on the offensive end. He has his limits, obviously, defensively, but he scores around the basket when he's not like a nervous wreck. And then he's a solid shooter, a great screener. Joe's just really learning how to use these guys with what they offer, and feels like everything he touches this year really turns to gold.
Yeah, no, they with Gaza in particular, I thought he, was caught in some really bad spots defensively. Oklahoma took advantage of him in that first quarter, but he kind of was able to stay with Holmgren, not overreact and go up the floor too much on the screens, where I thought Shea just took advantage of that in that second stint. So I thought that was really cool. He's a really good screener. He is not great at getting out of screens. He's actually pretty slow.
Yeah.
And, but you still saw the impact of Tatum where Gaza sets his screen and you could
Wide open.
honestly count 1,000, 1,000. And there's three guys just looking at Jason Tatum. And he was able to deliver a bullet pass and no one was within a mile of Gaza. So
Tatum
just
baited him too because he kept dribbling backwards and they just kept coming at him.
yeah, and they didn't
Yeah.
even watch Gaza in that instant. So that was interesting how that kind of worked and worked out. Yeah,
Great
no,
play by Tatum.
yeah, and as to the Brown and the following point, I will say, like you, I think rightfully so, maybe 2 months ago or a month ago, I don't remember, said that, one of your biggest concerns is how the Celtics will react to physicality in the playoffs or late in games.
Last night was
Um, I think they have shown that uh, they play through contact.
mhm.
They welcome physicality, especially Jaylen Brown. And I think the difference of how the Thunder get calls and the Celtics get calls was pretty evident. The Celtics try to play through you. Um, the Thunder essentially just, embellish and fold and look to get to the line that way. Throughout their team, whether it's
Super
Dort
annoying.
or Holmgren
Oh,
or certainly Shea, where I think for the most part, you look at Jaylen Brown, he's just trying to go through guys. And I think, I think that could serve the Celtics well in the playoffs. Now, I might have to eat some humble pie here. I texted you before the game or during the game, I don't remember which, that, I just think the Thunder are a little bit better right now. Even if all things being equal, both teams are healthy. I think probably the edges goes to the Thunder. I'm not going to come off of that just because the Celtics won. I will say I am thoroughly impressed. And I think I have to give their players more credit than I do, the Shymans, the Caters of the world, that they're not just like these dogs that are overplaying their contracts and having a good season. They're actually good fucking players. Like they're good NBA
yeah,
players.
they're good.
Cade is a starting center in this league. Like I am convinced of that now, and I think there's still a lot of room for him to grow, including like how quickly he gets out of screens, just the feel he gets when he's, cutting down the middle, and they get him a pass off the screen to know exactly what he has to do, and he's still getting better at that. He fight it over to the corner a couple of times. Um, but they're really good players. And so when I think of the Thunder role players, I already think they're real. We already know they're really good players. We know Caden Wallace is a really good player. We know Dort's a really good player. We know Mitchell's a really good player. McCain's a really good player. I think we probably got to look some of these Celtics players in the same light. They're role players that we probably did not at all earlier in the year. I mean, even Hugo Gonzalez in his limited minutes really gave them something last night in that
He did.
first half, especially that second quarter. And we should talk about that second quarter because certainly you're going to circle the third and fourth. The Celtics scored 70 points. Their offensive rating was through the roof. The rebounding, the assist in that second half. But that second quarter, really, particularly on the back of Jason Tatum in that second quarter, really changed the game too.
It did. And to your point on Brown, I think the biggest difference with these role plays this year is they're taking on the mantra of this year's leader. And this year's leader is all about toughness and grit, the way he plays, going to the hoop, getting into the paint as much as he can. You don't really see as much as that 5 out offense anymore. The Celtics are shooting less threes, again to the free throw line more. They're rebounding. Joe's certainly switched that around. The offensive rebounding is they're probably one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the NBA. I mean, and defensively, I think they take on Brown's personality too. And I was looking at it today after last night's game, Jim. The Celtics points per game, they're the best in the league now.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
By like 0.2, I think, but they're there. And yeah, that second quarter last night, Tatum came out and put up 12 points, which is awesome. I think he was like 4 for 4 at one point, or something like that. But the defense, they started to make stops, right? Like I feel like that's when the Celtics get going. When their defense starts to make stops and they're getting every rebound and loose ball, things kind of fall into place. And they were working really hard, which in the previous 2 games against Memphis and Minnesota, I think some of that grit and toughness was a little, not a little, was lacking. They weren't ready to play. And certainly against Minnesota, you saw their offense kind of go back into old bad habits. And I certainly thought the first quarter they got good looks and just missed. And they kept defending hard. They didn't get away from what works for them. And it paid off. And I know they were losing at the end of that second quarter. I think OKC went on like a 4-0 run or a 6-0 run. So it wasn't a great end to the half, but I just saw something in that quarter that told me the Celtics can absolutely win this game.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think it was the defense. I thought the defense was pretty good in the first quarter. The OKC just made shots. They didn't really change the game plan. Well, they did. They sent more help to Shea as the game went along. But what I thought got them going was, Tatum made 2. So in that first quarter, the Celtics star players really distributed the ball to kind of the role players, and the role players just didn't make enough shots. I think that's kind of a good way to like.
And I think Brown.
If you're gonna
I think at one point Brown was like 3 for 8 to start, so he was a little off too. Yeah.
To summarize the first, it was a lot of that, and so. When we come out to the start the second, Brown isn't on the floor. It's Tatum. I don't remember if it was with White or Pritchard, but it's one of them. He hits 2 driving layups. One he got Hardenstein out on him. Another one, I forget how he went. And then he comes down and he hits a kind of a step back 3. So
that's when I was pooping.
Then on the next possession, Brown's now in the game. And the defense, he's on the above the break from the left side, the right side, and the defense is really focused in on him now, and he's dribbling the ball out, looks like he's going to pull up for a 3, and throws a cross court pass, that's just a piss missile. It really is. It's on a line to Brown, right in the shooting pocket. And Brown hits a 3, and I just at that moment I'm like, oh gosh, this is unlocked for the Celtics now. If their role players can just make some plays and make some shots, these 2 are unlocked. And you could just see too at that point it was tough when Tatum and Brown were both in the game for OKC to really throw 2 at Brown. Now that we saw Tatum really unlocked like he was. And I thought that sequence there by Jason Tatum really changed the game. The other thing that I think was different in this game for him that we haven't really seen, he was going up for tough contested defensive rebounds. A lot of his defensive rebounds in his first few games back were kind of uncontested, him being tall and being there.
No, they needed it last night.
Yeah. And I was wondering when that was going to happen. I think that was probably some, that hesitancy of coming back injured and really getting after it. You're not going after a loose ball. How hard are you going to get after it on defense? You're not really mixing it up. I think the level of that competition and him getting going like he did kind of forced him to stop thinking about that, and he just played. And I thought it was a huge step for him. He played 36 minutes. Um,
Mhm.
just, one of those nights where a lot of really positive things happened for the Celtics, including getting this impressive win that could mean, really big things for them as we move forward.
And I think in the second half, like halfway through the third quarter, the Celtics were shooting close to 50% from three and
Yeah,
still losing. And so they had like a pretty high volume of three and they were making, and from two, they were shooting like 39%. And I chalked that up to like, well, OKC's got two like 7-footers and it's hard.
yeah.
But I'll tell you something.
They had to make a change though, didn't they?
They went to the paint. They went to the
Yeah.
paint. They kept going. I mean, Tatum got to the hoop in. I think for me, what I took from that, even though he had some misses, is that in the 7-game series, Tatum can beat these guys to the paint, and it's obvious that Brown can. I think in order to beat OKC, you got to be able to shoot the three, but you got to be able to hit your shots in the paint. You gotta take it to these guys. I think after that front line of some of these really good elite perimeter defenders, um, as good as Holmgren is at defending the rim and Hartenstein, I think Tatum can get into their body, and that's what I saw last night. I think Tatum can attack these guys and score on them in the paint. So
Well,
to me, that was really promising.
the Celtics had such success with the Nemi Tatum pick and roll, and that was how one of those layups was scored. And they were getting layups and they were getting open threes off it. Secondary passes were happening. They were having so much success on Browns being able to get downhill. And then the other guys spreading OKC out and making shots, and they were open shots. They were all open shots for the most part. Even, when Shireman would get the flyby on Shea, you'd see some contests like that, but they would end up being open shots. Um, OKC had to make a decision that they needed more offense because they couldn't keep up
Mhm.
defensively. And what did that mean? You're not going double big anymore. So what does that mean for the Celtics on offense? That deterrent's gone.
Yep.
And so those makes get a lot easier. So that second half, they weren't playing against many double bigs. And in the fourth quarter, there were times they weren't playing against any big. And it made their job a lot easier. It was like you talk about the different lineups and the chess match these two teams are playing. I thought that was going to be a lineup the Celtics were going to really have difficulty with, that Hardenstein Holmgren lineup. It turns out it's not a problem for them.
Well, yeah, and we'll see. And if OKC goes small against the Celtics in the NBA Finals series, you know, put Tatum on the post. Those guys aren't going to be able to cover him down there. Now,
No,
last night they didn't have to, but they certainly have that option, and that's something that they should work back into their offense before the regular season's over. I know Tatum's obviously giving guys a ton of space with what he's doing on the sidelines, um, on the baselines, but definitely something to look at. So that was a great win, Jim. I mean, a tough win. They held on to a lead, a double figure lead. They didn't let the team get back in it once they got the lead. Not close enough that you really felt threatened. And they were clearly the better team last night. And I don't think OKC is fully healthy. Jaylen Williams doesn't look right. So, do the Celtics have an edge if they meet? Maybe they do. But a lot of work to do before then. The Knicks are right on their heels. Got 10 games left. So, but that was a great win.
yeah, and these games there's variables, right? Like the Celtics were over 50% on their above the break threes. I think OKC was 2 for 20. That was quite similar actually to an OKC too. No one was hitting threes. Only Shea was making plays. I think you mentioned to me at one point between the two games, Shea was 17 for 18, last,
Yep.
the two games combined. You talk about the
Uh,
28
the,
free
the
throws.
fourth quarter, the fourth quarter of the last game when he went 8 for 8, and then this game where he started off like 8 for 9.
Yeah, so ridiculous stuff.
Yeah,
Ridiculous stuff.
ridiculous.
And then Brown's free throw, the number he's got to, I mean, that's quite high against this team. So I like those things aren't going to happen every game, obviously. And so, every game is a different story, has its own story. But I think there are some like broader takeaways from the Celtics that are pretty encouraging. You know, even when you take away the shot making, just the level of play of their role players, who they are now. They're not just these young, hungry, dogs who are getting their opportunity. They're good fucking players. And then, Tatum taking a step in the right direction and Brown not taking any step back with Tatum coming back, I think is huge. Still playing at an MVP caliber against the MVP, against the champion, and really, like you said, maybe the biggest one of the year. So those things you can take. Those things carry over. Those things continue on. It was a lot of fun. Who knows what the rest of the season is going to give you? But these nights, it's why you're a basketball fan. They're just games like that are awesome. Last night was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good games coming up this weekend for sure. I mean, they have Atlanta, who's been playing very well. Then they have the Hornets, who beat them pretty bad, and then they have Atlanta again on a back-to-back. And you turn the schedule around, you got Miami, Orlando, and New York. So a lot of teams with a lot to play for down the stretch, which is, I think it's good. It's good to have those games before you enter into the playoffs. So Celtics will fit comfortably into that 2 or 3 seed, depending on how things pan out here. And we'll be talking about matchups soon, Jim.
Yeah, and the
Playoff
Knicks and
matchups coming up.
yeah, I want to get to that. I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to ask you a question on that before we close today. The Knicks and Celtics, their strength of schedule it's pretty similar at this point. There's not
Yeah.
a huge discrepancy. So whoever gets that 2 seed is going to earn it. My take on it really hasn't changed. I'm not so sure it really matters to either team all that much, whether they're the 2 or the 3. I think both team are both comfortable playing at the other one's joint, and I'm not so sure home court advantage matters as much in that series as it would in others. Maybe I'm wrong and I could be proven wrong, but that's what I believe. Um, Let me ask you, speaking of matchups, let's start really getting ahead of ourselves and we'll come back to the East. Who out West do you think, out of the best teams out West, is the best matchup for the Celtics, and which team out there is the worst? So we're talking OKC, Houston, Denver, maybe you throw
Minnesota.
Minnesota in that group. Yeah. So
You see that comeback last night against Houston without Anthony Edwards? Down
Ime
13 with 2.
Udoka, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best matchup for the Celtics is Houston, but Houston's not going to make it to the NBA Finals. Let's be real. And you didn't mention the Lakers, who are the hottest team out West right now.
I don't think I don't care. They're not getting there.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
they're
I'm not
settling
buying.
into that 3 seed.
Yeah, they're not good enough. I don't care how hot
Jim,
they
it's
are.
it's
They're
it's
not.
OKC, San Antonio. If we're going to be honest, man.
Oh, I forgot about the Spurs. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Spurs.
like I'm going to go between one of those 2 teams. I'll go with the team the Celtics beat this year. They beat OKC. They're 1-1 against them, so bring them on. Um, I think the Celtics could beat all these teams. If I was going to pick one team, like best case scenario for them to play in the NBA Finals, it would be the Lakers or Houston. That I would be like, there's no way those 2 teams are beating Boston. But Minnesota, Denver, San Antonio, and OKC, I think could all beat Boston, and I think Boston could beat them. So, yeah, I would say Houston or LA Lakers would be one of the 2 teams as far as contenders go that I would want to see.
Is it weird for me to say that I think Denver would be the worst matchup for the Celtics? I think that screen and roll,
Worst?
of all the things the Celtics can do defensively, I think that screen and roll, Murray and Jokic, they don't have an answer for.
Yeah, it's just Denver's so inconsistent. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying.
I just mean this Celtics, not the best team. I'm not calling them the best team. I just mean matchup wise.
Mhm.
I think that series could be the most difficult.
Yeah, and especially with Aaron Gordon back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then him
and
running out of that corner on that pick and roll, like as good as the strides that Nemi has made, I just think he would really. I'm like Gaza's unplayable in that sequence. You would have to put him on somebody else.
Vooch is too.
Yeah, Vooch is too. So it's like
Yeah.
I just to me that down crunch time with those two, I think that would be very difficult for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, last night Murray scored 54 and Jokic didn't he have a 20-20-20 night, or he was like right at a 20-20-20
Yeah,
night?
I know he's insane.
It is insane. It
Yeah.
is.
I actually,
Um,
and on the flip side of that, the only reason OKC is the best team. I think they probably give the Celtics the hottest time, but the Celtics don't match up badly against them
no, they don't.
for what
They really
OKC
don't.
wants to do. They do not match up badly against them.
And OKC is in trouble if Jaylen Williams doesn't get healthy.
Hmm.
They are because you can leave some of these guys open. I think the Celtics have shown teams that like let them shoot, let Caruso shoot threes and see if he's going to beat us for 7 games. Obviously OKC's defense is still going to be really good, but that second create guy who can create on his own, I don't know if they actually have that right now.
Yeah, if Williams is it himself, yeah,
That's
no,
what I
that's
mean. Yeah.
yeah, that's for sure. So out
Um,
east, same question for you. Like, so
there's like a
who do
bucket of
you,
teams.
who is the toughest matchup? And you can pick two if you want, and then who you know, people might think you should worry about, you wouldn't worry about at all.
I wouldn't worry about Philly or Toronto. Toronto would be fun though. Toronto's a tough place to play in the playoffs. Um,
I don't that didn't Raptors didn't even factor into my thinking.
they're in it though. It's like they're
They're not very good.
yeah, but they possibly could be the Celtics' first round opponent. So those two teams would be the two teams I'm not afraid of at all. Um, Two teams I think that the Celtics would want to avoid for me would be Atlanta and Charlotte. Those would be. I think the Celtics win the series, but I think those are two
Well,
teams that.
maybe I didn't ask quite. I'm not talking like first round opponent. I mean the field.
Oh, the
The
field.
field. Yeah.
The Knicks. The Knicks have the number. The Celtics have to prove they can beat the Knicks again. I don't care how good they're playing right now. They got embarrassed last year, and they've been embarrassed this season. So yeah, they have to overcome the Knicks.
Yeah,
That's the team. Everybody else in the East, the Celtics are and should be the favorite until they do it and they don't blow leads and they hold on to leads and they show up and they don't have quarters where they look like they're scared. Um, they against the Knicks, then that's the team, right? Like the Celtics and the Knicks are the favorites because is Cade even coming back? I don't even know what his situation is. So
yeah, that situation is weird. Even with Cade back, he kind of you they're a hard playing team, they're a physical team, the Pistons, all that. But with that one just guy that can create, that kind of the Celtics, that kind of fits what they want to do, anyways,
well, it looks
defensively.
like this backup point
It's
guard is really good in Detroit.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, even still, I
yeah.
mean,
So,
yeah,
like I think Detroit would give them fits, but I think the Celtics would be fine. Yeah, I agree with you. The Knicks, and I think they'll try, and they've had some success with just going with OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges giving single coverage to Brown and Tatum. Um, they have their own deficiencies that the Celtics didn't do a good job of exposing last year in the playoffs with Cat and Brunson on defense. But yeah, no, I think for sure that's the one that I look at. To me,
the other factor, yeah,
the second round matchup is going to be
it's gonna be a war. And
yeah,
the other factor with the Knicks is that we didn't factor in last year is that Bridges can be a pretty awful player in the regular season, but when it's nut cutting time, that guy shows up and he shoots and he hits his shots and you forget he's out there and then suddenly he's got 20 something points and he's killing you on the offensive end. He's getting up on you on the defensive end. Celtics got to be ready to go. There's no quarters off against the Knicks. There's none of that. Like, you get a lead, hold on to it. You got to stomp on them. Yeah, I fully expect the Celtics' attitude and concentration, everything to be better this time around. Like,
And health. I mean, that was a big part of it last year too. If Jaylen
mm,
Brown was not Jaylen Brown in that series,
yep.
he would have one game where it looked like he got a shot and he'd be himself, and then the next two he would just be a non-factor. And they had other older players like KP and
Holiday.
Holiday who weren't healthy either. So I like these are younger guys. The bigger question is whether, how they're gonna look when the lights are on, when you're in Madison Square Garden. Is Shireman and Keita, are they the same guys? We're gonna find out. But yeah, no, that's health. Obviously, that's always the boogeyman in the room. But yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
you on the Knicks stuff,
and they gotta
100%.
do a better job specifically with New York of keeping Cat off the offensive rebounds. He's hurt him this year with it, and he hurt him in the playoffs last year. I know people say he's a soft player. I think he's soft too. But the Celtics were getting really hurt on the glass against New York, and that's an area where they really improved this year, Boston. So I want to see them. They play New York again in the regular season. Um, Got to keep that guy off the glass. I think he's up to like 14 rebounds a game now this season. That's how the Knicks get you.
Yeah,
A
it's
lot
the
of their
offensive
offensive
rebound.
possessions are messy.
And that's the one big difference with the Celtics and, you know, from last year to this year too, is that the Celtics are an elite offensive rebounding team. Much in the way
Correct.
the Knicks were built, where
Mhm.
I think is a huge difference. It's kind of amazing. Um, if you look back at the start of this year, Mike, I think everyone was in agreement that this was a really poor rebounding team. And now they're a very good rebounding team.
Great rebounding team. Yeah.
Were essentially, and they were a good rebounding team before Tatum came back,
Uh-huh.
with essentially the same guys. It's really what the coaching staff has been able to do to get them to commit to different things and to hide weaknesses and make weaknesses strengths is really compelling and as impressive as anything else that has happened this season.
You could, yeah, you could argue that this team is better than last year's team. The way they're constructed and the way people have developed.
When you can't make it to your kid's game, you don't have to miss it. With Game Changer, it feels like you're there watching your kid's game live in crisp HD, following every play in real time. And replaying the moments you'll talk about later with automatic highlight reels. So even when you can't be at the game, your kid still knows you're on the sidelines cheering them on for every big moment. And Game Changer is always free to download. Live the game like never before with Game Changer.
This episode is brought to you by Alexa Plus. Say hello to Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do more for you. Need tickets to that last-minute show? Craving your favorite restaurant? Sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. Alexa learns your preferences to create a personalized experience. And now, Alexa Plus is free with Prime on your Amazon devices, like Echo and Fire TV. Learn more at amazon.com/Alexa Plus.
Yeah, I think health has a lot to do with that. If that group was healthy, like they were this season before, I think we tend to forget just what they did to the league when that group was healthy. Um,
But they weren't healthy, and that's the point.
yeah,
And
that's a point. And whether they would be ever again, too, probably not.
yeah,
Yeah.
and obviously Stevens had to make financial trades, but he also replenished the team with these guys who are on small contracts who are all very good players. And you don't see that happen around the league. The league is lacking talent in a lot of ways when it comes to these under the bench guys and guys, who aren't starting, and these younger players not being ready for the NBA. The Celtics are doing a really good job developing their players, and that's a big part of the reason why they are where they are and where they're going. So It's really impressive. Really, really impressive with what they're doing this year.
Last question for you, Mike. As far as the regular season goes, does last night answer most of the questions you had about this team?
Yeah, I do want to see them respond against Charlotte, who blew them out. I'll come out a little angry in that one. And yeah, most of my questions are answered. What kind of shot Tatum's going to have for the rest of the season, I think is
That's a
something.
big one, right? Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah. I'll be questioning a lot. And then, like Peyton Pritchard's effectiveness in the playoffs is something I keep an eye on too. Against some of these better teams, more skilled teams on the defensive end, if he's going to be able to put up the offensive numbers that he does against some of these lesser teams, I don't know if he's going to bring you that consistency night to night. So it's almost like super important that Tatum starts to shoot better, because I don't think you're going to get it from all these other guys, just with the way defense picks up in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, Tatum's how he continues to grow. And I feel a lot better about things with that today. It really started in the third quarter against Minnesota. And then I thought it took off really last night, even more against OKC. So as long as in the shooting's important, but you also see just when he's playing just even close to himself, the attention defense gives him and how much life that makes easier for Jaylen Brown, and other guys just getting wide open looks. We talked about the Gaza slow roll, the game before against Minnesota in the third quarter. There was a great camera shot of three guys lined, from the above the break three free throw line to the other above the break three, all hands out wide, just looking at him. And he just made an easy pass to Peyton Pritchard in the corner, and no guy was even 5 feet around him, and he hits a three. So if he continues to grow, what he's able to give that team, even beyond the shooting, is really huge.
Then Pritchard missed him wide open in the corner last night in the fourth quarter. Oh, if you remember
he
that.
did. He did.
My God. I was like passing the fucking ball.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, you going to ask me about MVP or?
No, I was just going to say one last thing before I close. The other team I wanted to mention, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but if Orlando was able to get back past Cleveland and then Detroit, they are tough. I think they're a tougher matchup for the Celtics than either of those two teams are. So,
yeah, I don't know if they're going to get out of the first round.
I don't either.
They
I don't
had
think so
won.
either.
They had won 7 in a row, and I think they're back to losing 4 in a row.
Just kind of who you are at some point during the season.
Who's eligible for MVP?
I don't follow that enough. I did see Brown go on a tirade about it the other day on his Twitch, saying now we want to change the 65-game rule, where he seems to be in favor of the 65-game rule. Oh, I don't know. I don't know who's eligible for it. I don't think.
Well, he kept saying they, but isn't he the vice president of the union?
Well, yeah, the union agreed to this.
Yeah, and he was like, I wanted a 62 game, but they gave us 65, and I was like, didn't you negotiate the 65? But anyways, yeah, I didn't know, like, is like Shea or Jokic, like who's even eligible? Is it just gonna be Jaylen Brown wins MVP?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think Wembanyama is definitely eligible.
Is he?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, all right. I'll be interested to see what happens there. I mean, Jokic is probably the MVP. They'll probably give it to Luka because they'll sweat his nuts.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve it.
But he scored 60 the other day, so they'll all be excited and horny about that.
I have some thoughts about him that I have on the next pod. Some fresh thoughts. I just have some real issues with that guy.
Why do you wait until he's like playing the best he's played all season though to do it?
Because I think that's the time. Like it's easy to shit on him when it's not going well, but like the whole thing with Batase, where he tells Batase to go F his mother, and then Batase goes out. No, but Batase, he said that first. Lucas said that first. And then
Yeah.
Batazzi said, "I'll go F your own family." Then Luka runs to the referee, that makes a whole big thing out of it in the
Oh, did
press.
he?
Well, yeah, when he said it first, like, I mean, just you're a clown. Like you're a clown. You're gonna get in the guy's face after you tell him to F his mother and he says something back to you, but first you're gonna go to the referee. Like, and the other thing too is like I know I said this on the pod a few years ago about like people comparing him to Bird. Guys like Bird, great players, guys like Jaylen Brown, they play hard all the time. They play hard all the time. They don't take off possessions. The game means something to them. You know, I go back to that game 5 against the Pacers where Bird smacks at the end of his career, he smacks his face against the concrete floor of that old garden and then comes back into the game. That is something Luka Doncic would never, ever do. And he would never defend with the full effort that the game deserves. And he'll never get himself into the shape with the full effort that the game deserves. So he can score his 60. The Lakers can get up to the 3 seed. But he is such a pretentious dickhead. I'm just so sick. I think he is so bad for the game. I think his attitude sucks. And, you know, there was so much to like about him early on in his career. And he's just completely wore on me. Completely wore on me. And that's my take on him.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell
Yep.
that he wore. So who's worse, him or James Harden?
James
Who do you hate
Harden, you
more?
always knew who he was. Luka was built up to be something else. So I think Luka. And
'Cause he
Luka's
really hit-
changed. You know, I think he's changed as the stars gotten brighter on him.
Because you really hated James Harden like a couple weeks ago.
I hate the way Harden plays. And I hate the way he conducts himself from team to team. Yeah, so I'm not a huge James Harden fan either. No.
Is there anybody else that you hate before we get off the pod?
That I hate? I don't know. I don't hate anybody. I can't stand what I watch. This is I don't know these guys from Adam. I cannot stand what I watch.
I can't bring myself to defend Luka just to get you mad because I hate him. But I really wanted to defend him.
Yeah.
I was really like, I should just do it, but I'm not going to do it today. All
Well,
right.
there you go. All right. I'll talk to you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Go see.
All right, this is the song. This is when we get seismic. See what we feel, yeah? It's evolution, man.
They're going to call it a half hour, part of the Fan First Sports Network. All production is done in-house, part of Get the Hell Off My Yard Productions.